Kaupapa Māori and Māori medium programs. In preparation for our hui this morning, please turn on your cameras and ensure your microphone is muted to maintain audio quality. And introduce yourself using the chat, please. Let us know your name, where you come from, and what your role is. A reminder that this hui will be recorded for our recording purposes, and if you so request, we can share. Nō reira, kia pai tā tātou hui, ka tukua te mauri ki te tuakana, kia ora Nick.
A tēnā koutou katoa o e kawi ana i ngā kaupapa, i ngā hōtaka whakangungu kai ako nau mai. Ki wainganui a tātou hei tautoko hei āwhina i a mātou kia kawi i nei mahi kia tautoko i a koutou me o koutou mahi. Nā reira mi inoi tātou. Tūmatatia, tūramatia, te tua papa te matasua o te aroa. Ki runga, ki raro, ki uta, ki tai e. Ko ia, ko te manaakitanga, te whanaungatanga, te pono me te whakamana i te ako. Haumi e, hui e, tāki. Kia ora. Tēnā koutou.
E tatari tonu ana mo e tahi atu, kia tai mai, e rangi, kei a koe Nick te wā, kia haere tonu ko te kaupapa whakawhanaungatanga.
Just depending on numbers, what we do, I think we've got this time here just to know who's in the room. And because we want to get through this, we want to understand who you are, where you are, and the programs that you have in the time we're here. Following that, we're going to give the providers some time, thank you, to go into a breakout room just to talk about what's on top. It's a time for you really all to air as much as you can about the concerns and share it if you can on the in the chat so that we can take that away and make sure that we can get time to respond or be able to support any of the questions that come out, and hopefully we can answer what you have today, but there may be others in that time. So I'll start around and then I'm going to hand it from me into the providers, and then you pass it to the next person until it gets around back to us. Tēnā koutou. So Nicola Chaser hau, e ahu mai I tu whare tō mō kai pātea. He kai ako I ngā kura I mō kai pātea. Engari I nei rā, ki te mahi au ki matatu Aotearoa. Ko taku aro, ko te kaupapa here, me te tiriti o Waitangi. Ka mahi tonu, ka aro tonu mātou I te rā tū I tērā pononga ki tērā kaupapa te tiriti. Tēnā koutou. Ka huri ki a koe, Mari.
Morena I te whānau, he mihi tēnei ki a tātou katoa. Tuatahi, aki a koe e te tuakana, Nicola. Nau anō ngā kupu, I horohia waingi I a tātou katoa ke taupai ai, e ngā manaakitanga ki Wainganui I a tātou. Ko Mari ropa te hei tōku ingoa, a ko au te kai whakahaere, he pūkinga whakaako hoki. Ki te kuninga ki pūre hurua nei, e rua mate nei tohu ko te aho tātarangi, me te aho pairewa, no reira, tēnā tātou katoa. Anei, taku hoa.
Ngā mihi o te ata, e taunaki ana I ngā, e tautoko ana I ngā mihi whamariki a koe e te tuakana mō ta tātou hui I whakatūwhira I tēnei ata. Ko rāhera whili atu tōku ingoa, he kai ako a hau I te aho tātairangi ki te kuninga ki Pūrehu Roana I te Papaioia. Ko au hoki te kai tautoko ākonga mō ngā tauira katoa o te aho tātairangi me te aho pairewa. Ngā mihi nui. He uri tēnei no ngai tūhoi no Hāmoa.
Kia koe, Rodney?
Tēnā katoa, koeo, ko Rodney Coombridge, toku ingoa. He program developer mo te whare wānanga o Aonuiarangi. So I'm not directly involved with the delivery of the program, but working in the academic registry. So I have a very keen interest in this kaupapa this morning.
Kia
Kia ora.
ora. Hear me? Matua, your microphone.
Kare moe hai pera ia engari. Aha ko te nui o ngā waka whakamahi a te hui topa. Ka wareware tunu i tahi wā ki ngā mahi a mama noi honei. Koe nora, e mihi ana ki a tātou katoa. Kia koutou te mata tū, tira tātou hoki ngā kai kawe wa tātou kaupapa ki tēnā pito o Aotearoa e mihi ana. Ko he mi tōku ingoa he uri a hau o muri whenua o ngā iwi o Te Raroa me Te Aupauri. Whakakoa ai au ki Waipapa Taumata Rau, ara ki te University of Auckland, ko ki roto i te hōtaka e kia nei ko te huarahi Māori, koira tā mātou hui, hōtaka whakangungu kai ako mā te huarahi o te reo Māori. Wenora, mihi ana, tēnā tātou katoa.
Kia ora. Tēnā koe, Kaylee.
Nā mihi o te ata ki a koutou katoa ki a koe Nicola ko atu te whira te ato tātai nei. Hui, ai ko au te tahi uri no ngā iwi maho o te tai rāwhiti, ko Kaylee Jones tōku ingoa, he kaimahi kai ako au o te whare wānanga o Waitaha ki o tō tahi nei, ko au te tahi hoki o ngā kai whakahaere o te ara mātauranga Māori mō ngā kai ako whakangungu kei roto i tō mātou kaupika. Nā reira, mihi ana kia koutou.
Tēnā koe. Tēnā koe, Patricia.
Tēnā koutou katoa. E uri ahau no hokianga, tēnei, ko Peti Hikoro tōku ingoa, e mahi ana hau i te wānanga o Awanuiarangi, kei whāngarei e kai kohe kohe. Tēnā tātou.
Pai ako?
Kia ora tātou, kia ora tātou i nāu i tīmata tā mātou hui tēnei ata. Ko pai ako Harris ahau, he uri o tētahi taha te whānau apunui, me tētahi taha o ngā seoa. Kau tētahi o ngā kai ako, kei roto o tātou tohu paitahi ako. Ai, kau tēnā. Kia ora tātou katoa.
Kia ora. Tēnā koutou. So we're just going to spend 5 minutes, just going to put you all in a room just to talk about what's on top for you. And so that means there are, I'm being like this, there are 6 of you. So it might be, well, perhaps you can get a minute or less each just to go around what's on top. And if there is a common kaupapa or question, can someone please, or you put them into the chat so that we can take them and we make sure that we try and cover them today, or it's something that we can make sure that's in the process going forward. Tēnā koutou. Hopefully if there was anything burning issue in there that that you've shared, that you get that to us so that we can respond to it. And I'm going to pass it over to Joe. Kia ora.
Kia ora koutou, ngā mihi ki a koutou mō tēnei wā, ko Joe Scott Takawingoa, no kaitahu me Ngāti Mutunga me o te mana me Airehi, oku iwi, ko te tātare arahi mō te ohu kaupapa here tuku mahi. Kia ora. So I'm just going to take us through a few short slides, just sort of outlining the mahi that we're embarking on with this hui today. And what I'll do is, if there's any questions as we go through the slides, or kōrero, just put your hand up. I'll try and see you. If I haven't noticed your hand up, just shout out and I'll pause for a minute. So can we go on to the next slide, please, Kia ora. So the mahi that we're about to start on is about developing a new approach or a new process for monitoring, review and moderation of our kaupapa Māori medium ITE programs. We have undertaken the work in the English medium part of the sector on developing an approach for that part of the sector, and we want to turn our minds to what that might look like in kaupapa Māori medium space. So it's very much kind of a blank slate at this time. But just to note that for our English medium approach, some of the things that that providers talked about as being important was having an approach that was robust, but also recognised that as providers they're quite heavily sort of monitored and so forth already, with particularly in terms of what they do internally, but also what they might do with NZQA if they're an NZQA provider and with QAP. So just keeping that in mind. And so what we were trying to do is have a kind of as light a touch as possible, but with room for additional support and things if it was needed later on. So we do want to, before we really dig into this piece of work, we really thought it would be a good opportunity to hear from you about some of the things that you think you would need out of the process. We think it'll probably take about 12 months to complete the mahi, and that's based on what on the kind of time frame we had with the English medium work. So there's time to sort of develop thinking and kōrero and so forth around this piece of work. I'll just pause for a minute there just to make sure there are not any questions. Missed anyone there? Cool. Can we go on to the next slide? So probably not a surprise for you as providers, but just really that reminder of what we're talking about when we talk about monitoring, review and moderation. So as a quality assurance process, it's a process that helps us, i.e. the Matatu Aotearoa, to understand whether individual IT programs are operating as approved. So whatever was set out in the approval process when you started your programs. And then it does provide an opportunity to provide additional support if a program needed that. But also, probably quite importantly, it's that chance for us to have get some insights and look at whether there's any themes or trends that might be emerging across your part of the sector that might be important as a collective to kind of like pick up and think about. And so that's the moderation part of it. Moderation would also include moderating assessment processes, but that sort of concept of perhaps being able to also look at other themes and things that emerge would be something else we'd be thinking about. Any questions on that part of the slides? Great. Could we move on to the next one? And so just a little reminder there. So monitoring is more of a continuous or a periodic process. So that kind of mahi that you'll be familiar with in terms of external monitors coming into programs and things, and that allows for that regular collection of information relevant to the program. And then the review part of this process is that quality assurance at a particular point in time. And then the moderation part of it being that opportunity to come together as a sort of a national collective and talk about consistency of assessment, but also as I mentioned earlier, there's that opportunity to also think about or consider any themes that might emerge out of the information that we're collecting in other parts of the process. And so that would be an opportunity there to be able to get together and talk about those kinds of things. Just checking any questions there, comments.
can see a comment. Review. We will, is from Mari. Will we continue to use the whare tauira for our next review? So is that rongo tauira, is that what you're talking about, Mari? Aye, so it'll be like how we do it within the whare o rongo tauira, that whole, we'll follow that pattern. It's part of conversation. So kia mōhio ai tātou, kia, how do you do it? How did you do it? So in the approvals process, it was about how will you were telling us about that. We were discussing that. And the review, if it was a review, if we get to that point, it's the how did you do it? But it's recognising that the review might only come about, there may not be need for it. So it's recognising we want to know that you are operating as approved. So based on what you got your approval for, what was agreed to, and then so your monitoring is will show that we're trying to ensure that the processes that you have already will enable that, and unless so I'm not going to preempt anything. So the monitoring, all of those processes there are to provide an assurance that that's what's happening. It allows us to find that out in how you do that. Kia ora.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thanks, Nick. So yeah, it's kind of a two-way street, because it gives the council insights into how individual programs are operating, but also is that opportunity for you as providers to kind of get a more of a national sense of what's working, and if there are areas that where we need to focus attention as a collective. So some opportunities to look into the programs individually, but also those national themes and consistency of assessment mahi as well. Okay, can I just check, were there any other questions or comments before we have the breakout space? So the breakout space, and I sorry, I heard someone, but I can't see them. Okay, so the breakout space just gives us a chance, sort of probably split into a couple of groups there, but to talk about in terms of your current processes, and that this info will be in the meeting, in the room as well, what works and what could be improved or changed, and then in terms of report back, what would be essential for the council to know when we're thinking about how to approach the monitoring, review and moderation. So I think we just get popped into Nick and I will be in each of in a room each as well, so we can take notes and so forth. So I think we can just probably get dropped into those rooms now. Thank you.
Aroha, what we might do, because we got cut off, Karaitiana was cut off just midstream. I don't know if one of yours was, Joe. We might just start with Karaitiana just to finish off and share with the whole, with everyone.
Oh, te mihi nui tātou he tohu tēnei. Ko rere te manu e nā ka kaukati tāna rerenga. Tari, e pai ana ko tāku nei te utu mo te tai tōmuri in te mihi atu ki a koutou katoa. Pērā i whakatau tō tātou karakia whakao wairea nei tō tātou huarahi tēnei te mihi. Ana ki a koutou katoa ku hoa e tautoko ana i tēnei kaupapa. Ana ko Karaitiana tēnei no Waikato. Kia koe, Joe, for your presentation. And apologies, because I got an email to say it was cancelled, but I think we were diving and digging and we were still on. Kei te pai. My question was to do with the MRM, is that we don't want to be doubling or tripling up on workloads, because our main mahi is really in front of our tauira. But as with universities, we've got accountability to Teachers Council as well as QAP. At the Wānanga, they've got accountability to NZQA and Teachers Council. The common denominator is Teachers Council. So therefore, if somehow in some way, the Teachers Council can not merge, but be able to align those two different groups, so it's just one visit, as opposed to 2 or 3 separate visits. That's just one comment I wanted to make there, Nicola.
Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou.
Ka pai. In the group that I was in, did anybody want to make a comment from the kōrero? So we got a bit sort of chopped halfway through it as well. Kaylee, you were making that point around the importance of having contextual understanding, whoever's involved in the monitoring or review or moderation, that there's contextual understanding of kaupapa Māori and Māori medium, which I think is important consideration.
And it's probably a given, to be honest, for this kaupapa. But I think because we are different in the fact that we're in an endorsement within a wider tohu, that was a big consideration and appreciated when we did have the panel. But I know you were talking or informing us from Mari's partai around whether this is, whom is evaluating us on our own program or you. So if you wanted to, it sounds like it's teaching council.
Yeah, certainly for the monitoring, review, moderation part of it, it's the council's responsibility to make sure that we're doing that. We're required to do that, but how we do it is really what we want to explore in this mahi. So there's, and I think some of the things that are starting to come through around that, not duplicating effort and who's involved in the processes is going to be really important to kind of tease out a bit more over the coming weeks and months. And it was definitely that, particularly around that duplication of effort thing that the English medium providers talked about that quite a bit during this as well. So so there's going to be a range of things that we need to sort of consider as we move the mahi forward.
When Joe was saying it's our responsibility, like we've got the legal obligation to do it, to ensure that a process is implemented to do it. So we are wanting to be able to co-design with everyone, with you all, what that process is and how do we ensure that there's that we get an assurance process. It's much like principals when they say we have a deal program in our kura. Hey, we have a deal program. Our teachers have ongoing training and development. Well, what is the process then that you enable that to occur? So it's sort of the same.
Kia ora, Nick. Any other comments from out of the 2 breakout groups that you want to share? Okay. So just keeping an eye on the time, making sure we get through everything. So the next breakout group is really to an opportunity to think about, in regards to your programs, what do you think would be helpful for you to know or understand about your programs, and then what would be helpful to understand about programs, kaupapa Māori, Māori medium programs across the sector. And then we've started touching on it a little bit, but one of the questions is how do we make sure that these processes are robust, but they're not burdensome, so they're using time and resources and they're cost effective as much as possible. So I think we get popped into those breakout rooms again to talk about those issues. Kia ora, Otili and Ruby.
That is awesome. We're going to go straight to you, Whai Patricia, so you can finish off your kōrero about the LAT. Kia ora.
Okay. Kia ora. Kia ora no. This year we have changed our degrees rewritten, been through the panel process, and this year we've been really fortunate to enrol just in Kaikohekohe 31 students for year 1. So we've helped, Matuahemi, you'll be pleased that we've helped some of your ones that come along to us. So that's been an interesting process. That's the first time in Taitokera we've had so many just year ones. So a lot of those, I'm referring back to the LAT now, do already have a LAT and they are teaching. And so what we're looking at is what Fire brought up before is how do we acknowledge the years of service they've already done with their LAT, and how do we apply that also when they go out their practicum for the 3 years, or do we acknowledge an RPL and looking at what they already have achieved, and how do we acknowledge that? That was probably my question. Yeah, the acquisition of their LAT and the implementation in the kura school using the LAT. Kia ora.
Kia ora. We'll just take these questions, and some of them might be just answers that we respond straight to you for Patricia, about the LAT and Mari. Kia ora. Joe?
Did anybody want to comment from our group about the kōrero?
What I can say from ours is that we think that it followed in from what Kaylee was talking about. So it's that whole understanding the context, that what is it important, making sure that the monitor understands the context of the program and the provider, that it comes from their kaupapa, and that if we have a relationship with we have a good relationship with the monitor and understand that ourselves, sort of in there.
And we had a bit of kōrero around that contextual stuff, but also the importance of having those opportunities to connect across the sector and talk about the kinds of what's working well and where the challenges are, and how different providers are addressing those. So that connectedness was seen as important for providers.
Cool.
Okay. Any other comments from either group?
Trucking along.
Time is it? Okay. Okay. So, if we could move on to the next slide, which is really just me wrapping up this, very, as I say, this is really just a taster of for things to come, but just so that you're sort of starting to get your heads in this phase of things. So this work, there's quite a bit of work that needs to happen here in the office around project planning it and so forth. But one of the things that will be important for us, because Nick talked about earlier around the co-design of this mahi. So having a working group that we can work with to help us with developing the approach in the English medium project, that was a group of provider representatives, but also representatives from other parts of the sector. And so that was good, having that range of voices in there. So just sort of leading into that, you might want to, as providers, you might want to think about who you might want to nominate for that group, and we'll have get more information out around setting up that group at a later date. And then the project planning part of it, of course, to make sure that we get things done when we say we're going to do them. So we'll carry on working on that, and there'll be some further pānui and so forth to help you keep connected in with that, and then we'll set up a process for getting that working group together and get started on the mahi itself. So it's been really helpful hearing those initial thoughts from you about how you think that this sort of process could work, and recognizing that we've got some time to sort of dig into it a bit further, but we're also happy if there are any other things that occur to you once we've finished the call today, to just send those on to us, and we can put that into the mix as well. So kia ora everyone, that was really helpful, thank you. And I think, just checking where I'm at. I think that I'm meant to be handing over to Nick and
Good man.
Tamaho.
Right. Tamaho, meanwhile, is trying to connect. And so we were utilising this last part for two things. One, just to have a bit of a chat about our responses to the government priorities that are coming up. And I asked Tamaho to come in really to provide some assurances about what's going to be the same, what's coming up ahead of us, and our response where it impacts on us as Teaching Council and where it may impact on you as providers. And if hopefully I want to be able to wait for them without breaking into his PowerPoint and answering it myself. I'll just check. I suppose what I'll do, as he's coming in, so our whole job at Teaching Council is to make sure, so I think I've touched on this, is to ensure the public that we have an assurance system. We're responsible to provide confidence with our communities, with the sector and the minister, that our program's operating as approved. So that's the whole point of this. And up and coming, really, our work is still related on the development of the moderation, monitoring and view. That's our next 12 months, what we are co-designing with you, and then after that is implementing that. So that is in that space. What we have heard and what we will do is ensure that we're working with those external monitors. There is that what we will do is lighter touch with some, it says differentiation by provider, but recognising the mana motuhake of each program, and so understanding their kaupapa in that context, which of course we've heard today. So I want to be able to say, well, the exec and the hierarchy and the board are already lined up with that, and these are some of the things about our stance that they've shared with the minister. This is what we're doing. We will affirm that the data collected once and then shared with us. So that's about us having a relationship with those monitors, QAP and NZQA, that they're getting, or whoever's responsible, and they share it out once to us, and then we get what we need, everyone gets what they need, without use being having additional or duplication. We won't always do reviews. Reviews are only if there's a flag. If it's flagged from the monitoring, or there's a big thing that comes out of the moderation and we might need to do something. But that reviews will not always, and the reviews may not always use a panel. So they might be just a review that's that takes in the consideration of what the monitors have come back with. Again, to make it less onerous or less work for you. Probably us as well, truth be known. We are looking at a new national moderation event, so bringing together people, so a bit with Ona Kaupapa every 2 years for learning, improvement and consistency of judgments about the paerewa, about the standards. So it's bringing us together to be able to say, okay, this is what would bring some mahi and say the scenario that I would pass this. This is why. I wouldn't pass this. This is why. So in knowing with each other across the country, who, yeah, again, for consistency, and we can hear each other's why, our rationale for why. Yeah, so that's our business for the next couple of years in ITE, and then that is what was. I think he has not found his link.
No, he's there.
Tamaho's there. He's under
He's
your
there.
name. It's Nicola as well. He's
Oh, okay, Tamaho, you should tell me to stop talking because I'm just trying to fill in.
Oh, there we go. He's now Tamaho.
Oh, kia ora. Oh. Tēnā koe tamai. Nau mai, tēnā koe. So I was just going what our job is for the next 12, next year to 2 years. And do you want me to share a slide or just want to talk? I can't hear you. Three.
Kia ora.
Yep.
O tēnā koutou, koutou rā whakararangi mai rā, a koutou rā I runga anō rā I tēnei uinga, nei rā te mea kia koutou katoa. Ana katoa ia mai rā e rā kōrero I ora ia mai rā ki runga, ki mua I te aroaro o te kiritae. I roto I a Wanganui, I te rā wiki kua I Pākene. E nei kōrero I wakatangata mai ai te ia I te pirangi o ngā rārangi matua. Rātou anō rā I to e nei rā I te kawanatanga, kia whakaturia mai rā I te rā o te ao matua, hei huara I mo ngā tamariki mokopuna. Tēnā katoa ia mai rā te raki moi a tātou katoa, kia whakakōrero mai te rā hia ki mua I te aroaro o tātou no o tae nei. Ana ko te ao matua tēnei rā, ko te kura kaupapa, te kura aiwi, a pōpōra, ko wai a waiwiri ake, aua atu, oi anō rā, ko te hia te pirangi, o ngā mātua, nā rātou tātou e to e nei, kia whakarangatira mai ai te reo Māori, ngā kaiako Māori, ngā tamariki Māori, me te hunga e hia ana I te whai I te ao Māori. Anō reira koutou mā, nā toki tangata I pauka nei rā ki te whakarite I tō tātou nei kaiako Māori mo te āpōpō, mō nei rangi hoki, tēnā koutou. Tēnei te tāpiri atu taku nei mihi ki te tua iri nānā pea I huakina rā tēnei ki te karakia ki e rā a uatanga e wakaio, kia wakatau nei koutou tātou I roto I tēnei uinga. Nō reira tēnā koutou. Ko wai tēnei ko tamahau he uri tēnei o roto te kāui maunga o Wanganui, o Taranaki Wānui, mai I a ngā motu tairawa atu ki ngā rauru ki tae. Mahuta rawa atu ki te rātaha o te rangi tikei, ana ki te wāi o te reu ki te puke tapu ko Tokorangi. Ara, ko Ngāti Piki Ahu, ko Ngāti Waiwai. Te timatanga o te pai ki Ngāti Raukawa, te pai ki te tonga o Ngāti Tuwharetoa. Hoki anō rā ki te mā tāpuna, ki pianga, ki te rā o te kōpua kānapanapo o Taupō Nui Aotea. Tēnei mi nei kia koutou katoa. So kia ora, sorry for the long introduction, but I think it's necessary to always think about those things that are happening as they play out. And I make reference to last week being in Kawaiki in Wanganui for the hui ato for Te Aho Matua ngā kura kaupapa. And acknowledging the many kura that were there, the many iwi that were there, and the hopes and aspirations that have been marinating, developing over a 30-year period or so, or more, because it was a celebration of the 30 year of Te Runanga. as well. Going back to one of our kuia there, her name was Mateki Tauru, gardener, and she was a very staunch. She used to boss around Uncle Morven Simon, so she must have been really staunch, and advocate of te reo Māori, tikanga Māori and te ao Māori, which basically I bring here and lay that out in front of us because those are the things that we'll be talking about right here. And I know that Nick would have started the ball rolling in that area as well. So he mihi ana kia koutou katoa. I'm basically wanting to chime in after what Nick has basically started with in regards to our direction. What does it look like in this next phase? And we are happy to actually sit and listen and take on board what's consistently and collectively in line with what we were going with phase 1 with Rongotauira, Te Whare o Rongotauira, and that model leading into the moderation and review that's ahead of us now. Now, there's some learnings for non-Māori to hear in regards to the model as it moves into that phase. In the development and the discussions and the wānanga that all need to happen to generate what does it look like. But the second part, one of the main points is how do we make it common sense? How do we make it still in line with the requirements, but also kia Māori te whakaaro, kia Māori tuturu te tuapapa, ko te huahuatanga I puta mai ai, kia hangai puana, ki ngā mea kua kōrero kētia e koutou I ngā mārama tau kua hi Pākene. So let's not create anything fantastically new that is sparkling like Matariki coming. Let's make sure that it is connected to what you've already discussed in Te Whare Rongotauira, looking towards being accessible and not at a high cost. No reira. I'm going to leave it there. Is any questions from what Nick has basically said to what I'm going to, or us collectively are going to answer?
I'll just add in sort of just 3 kaupapa. So these are the new things that that might impact on how we have to respond in these things after that conversation that you had with the minister. And so what was presented was what we were going to do in the next 12 months. So there's no things. What I just talked about, monitoring and review in IT is what our focus is, the development of the process and then the implementation of that. As in regards to your kaupapa, it's really good to hear, ko te reo. We want to make sure that you're creating teachers fit for purpose, reo, good reo teachers for our mokopuna. That's the whole point. So the 3 things that they discussed, which is the new NALPs. So the minister has said that she wants to review the NALPs, the National Education Learning and Priorities. That's a big deal. So all schools will do that. But her focus is so that the system is focused around how we achieve them. So just leave that with you there. As you would have heard, the strengthening of teaching of reading, writing and maths. Now this is particularly for probably in the bilingual programs. I don't know how that impacts on its literacy from English. So again, at the moment she's not meddling in te reo, but it may have implications for literacy. So just putting that there and incorporating this, it says the science of learning. So teaching and learning, we talk about ako. And they've got some things probably particular. So again, you might want to be to think about how you might feed into that kōrero that comes out. So for the NALPs especially, because then that lines up everything else. And the last thing the minister is considering something for beginning teachers, some sort of concept, and she's talking about the concept of exit exam, and now we'll be heavily involved in that. And we've discussed with her as a measure, the national moderation of CIA as a way of proposing that. So we might do a moderation of your CIA assessment, but which she seems to be supportive of at this point in time as a way. So at the moment, those were her 3 things, and we're trying to say the stances within the work that we're proposing for the next 12 to 18 months, that it would be covered as much as possible within those. Monitoring would cover those, a review process would cover those, and a moderation process.
Nick, what was the second one again? Sorry, can you just...
The second one, strengthening teaching of reading, writing and maths, and incorporating the science of learning into the teacher's kete. So more work around pedagogy, I suppose.
And that's not we've got to have the answers right now.
No.
So this is just flagging that with us, and it's not to we don't need to have panic stations.
Yeah.
What we need to do, and the minister's working alongside us around that. And so for us is around getting back together to say, actually, when we're looking at Māori medium and our the Whare Rongo Tauira, where we came from in that first phase of new programs. What does moderation, what does review look like? And let's have a conversation around that. And with these 3 points in place, I get that. But they shouldn't be something that we're going to have answers on overnight, because some of this stuff is about, we've only just discussed this in the last month. So just wanting to make sure that we're clear on that.
And that we can cover, sorry, Tamo, I'm wicked.
No, haere tonu.
It's
Kua iau I tau katigia I te korero o tama wahine. Pene mai taku nei kuia I te kaiga.
It's a way of recognising what we have can respond to some of these questions if we allowed the time to do it.
Yeah.
What's been put
But then,
there.
it also marries up to our providers and their priorities at the moment. What's your priorities?
Yeah.
How's things going? What does moderation look like? What does review look like?
Yeah.
And then also, as we get information, as we're going along and we're developing this, we'll develop those kind of things with you, should they need to be put on the table. But we want to make sure that you're aware of them, but it's not something that you have to push a panic button and something falls out of the sky, because that's not where we're at the moment. We're just socializing this as simple as possible and low key.
Nice. Okay. I think is this leading into our final session, and it is a breakout room because it's, again, we're going to go into there because I want to just see if there's any burning questions, any concerns, so we can take that away. Joe and I will be put into those rooms so that we can record that kōrero and any of that stuff before we break up into the next session.
Kia ora, Nicola. Kia ora tātou. Before we break off,
kia ora.
No te me ka tika kia whakabihia ki a koe te rangatira ko te awa, ko au ko te awa, anei Waikato e mihi kauala.
Oh, kia ora.
Kia tātou katoa. Just on the brief, before we break off into our groups. Now, I've got an understanding of the what, why, and we're looking for the how. The what is with kaupapa Māori, mātou raka Māori, te reo e tūtanga, whakarau ika hia, whakarau hia, whakarau ora hia. The why is, as mentioned, Nicola, for the Teachers' Council, is that assurance, ki te maria, ko tutuki pai tēnei hōtaka, tēnei huarau. And the how, from what I can gather, using Whare Rongo Tauira, is a monitoring, review and moderation process. However, we do have a duplication or triplication, if we're not careful, with QF at Teachers' Council, NZQA and Teachers' Council, on the providers assembled today, that basically at the end we're looking at a potentially a context-based template for us to move forward, and possibly potentially a one visit approach to that, whatever that may look like. My pātai is, and it's come around with the new government and the environmental change in education, is do we have an assurance from the minister that Māori medium, I'm not talking bilingual actually, I'm here for Māori medium and the immersion aspect, because that's what I think a lot of us are here for, is a priority for her. Tuatei, tuaru, interesting, just the terms used, exit exam, and I know it's new. CIA, I thought was cultural investigative assessment, but I think it means something else here. And the science of learning, well, used to be the art of learning. And so, you know, just a bit of the language used kind of, question mark. But like you said, Tamaho, you know, the Nelps are there, but don't get overzealous on what's happening. We just take it at a low profile. But that's what I've picked up. I'm not sure if other whānau are on the same wavelength, but it's really cutting to the chase. And moku ake is whether Māori medium education is a priority for the current Minister of Education. I just want to know that really. And mehe me kei te whakakotahi hia tātou, I raro i te karago te hui o te kigi, ana te hui ki rātana, taino atu ki Waitaki. Hei reira tonu tātou, toi tui te reo, toi tui te tiriti, tērā āhuatanga katoa, kei hea tērā āhuatanga, tērā kaupapa, I roto I te tāhu o tātou birita hau. Koira taku pātai.
So,
The response ka pai, te tāre tonu ki breakout groups, but
o anei taku iti, era I te mea ka whakautu I te katoa o te pātai o anō, he mata o tērā uataka. Tika rawa te kōrero, te karanga o te kingi ki tātou kia hui ki roto I a tūranga waiwai. A mātou roto o Poneki, ui ki mua noa atu I tērā uinga, tatu atu ki rātana, tatu atu ki Waitaki. Tēnei e whakaaro ana. My thinking around your question is quite pivotal, and we as the Teaching Council are very clear that life hasn't changed because a new government has come through, and neither has the position that I hold in here or the different members on our governing council for the Teaching Council, like Ripeka and parts of Akatea in that as well. In regards to the tiriti, in regards to the Māori and providing for our tamariki mokopuna, that hasn't changed. And the beauty of us being a statutory body, that means that we are able to actually, we sit removed from the clause of the minister of the day, but still needed to have a friendship with, on behalf of the profession. And I want to be clear on that because that actually gives us insight into what you're talking about. And part of our response to that question is it a priority? Yes, it is a priority to us. It is a priority to us, and yes, we will to'e for it. To the mere fact is, as soon as the doors open in that place that has bees running around in it, that we are asking for a collective approach to the select committee around that Tiriti o Waitaki bill. And the Teaching Council is putting in a submission alongside Akatea, alongside all the unions as well, to make sure that Māori medium, taha Māori, tikanga Māori, te reo Māori, is of high priority from our functions as how we are set up as an organisation in the Act, and those other parts of the Education Act that actually are the drivers around the treaty stuff. So just quickly, and I know it wasn't quick, but to answer your question, yes, it is a priority for us. Yes, we will be voicing that at the table, and we have been voicing that at the table with the Minister and all the other ministers, alongside Minister Seymour, alongside Minister, our Education Minister as well. And we will continue to do that because that's what we are designed to do, and it's in our functions.
Yeah.
We are happy to share with you our journey, because we will be bringing in certain people to help us write the submission to the Select Committee once the reform for the principles of the treaty is open for community to submit. And we're looking at making sure that there's a collective education approach to that. So we'll definitely share that with you as well as we go forward.
Okay.
Nā me.
Does anyone else want the floor while we've got his ears? Does anyone else before? Because we actually, the breakout room was a space to be able to do that. There was going to be some time in here. I just want, does anyone else got a comment? And then we may not need that. Any burning issues, questions, anything? It's just tohu. Tohu. Oh, ngā mihi. O te rā. Okay.
If I could just, Nick, just quickly, just share with you the direction that we're doing some of our stuff. At the moment, we're partnering up with Akatea at the moment around working together to make sure that we're in line with not just our own internal thinking, that there is some external thinking that links into iwi. So we're at the moment in a partnership with Akatea, and Akatea has their relationships with the iwi chairs around things like the National Action Plan Against Anti-Racism, which will link into what you were talking about, Matua, in regards to some of the narratives, the rhetoric that's coming out of different places and spaces in Parliament there, and addressing unteach racism and addressing the anti-racism as well. But part of that, a whole direction is around getting Māori voice in the right places, and it's not just with Akatea. We are in the discussions also with ECE, Puna Reo, and those ones who want to actually join up and be friends for now, because we know we're not, it's an in and out. It's not sometimes they want to be friends and some they want to give us a bit of a kick in the bum, and that's a part of that whole process of being in partnerships and relationships at times, and we understand that. But what I wanted to share with you is that we're learning alongside our friends and our people who don't like us too. We learn from them as well, so that you're clear that we're not just trying to deal with this and put this all together inwardly, that we're looking outwardly to friends, we're looking outwards to partners to help guide us on this treaty journey, on these te reo journey, because we don't get it right all the time. That's why this process here is really important. It's important from the very fact that kai a koutou te rā mana ko I matauranga. Me pehea te whakaako I te kai ako I roto I tō koutou nei ware, mena he ware wānanga, mena he wānanga, mena he kopa reo, e rā kātu a uatanga kai a koutou te mana. Ko tā mātau I te tautoko ake, te whaka pū oi te rā mana. Ki pai ai I te tuku, I te reo, I te matauranga, mānga nei ki te ngutu o te tamaiti e hia kai ana. Nō reira, tēnā katoa mai.
Kia ora. Okay.
Mari has her hand up.
Oh, kia ora, Mari.
Tēnā tātou. Tēnā koe tamahau.
Oh, kia ora.
Kia ora, e mohana koe, noho tahi māta ko te rūnanga nui o ngā kura kaupapa Māori. Nō re, ko taku pātai, nātami, i te mātaki hoki au, te kōrero tuatahi o Joe, me te whakaro, ko wai pea hei kanohi i runga i te rōpū noho tahi pea koutou, he aha ko wai pea atu e tehi tangata hei kanohi noho ki taua rōpū. Nō taku pātai, te rapi kei roto kē rātou, engari koina taku pātai, kei roto, kei te noho te o te rūnanga nui ki tō koutou nei rōpū?
Koia ko te wero nui i te tuahine, ko te wero nui e kaha ana mātou ki te tono atu, kia oepa mā, kia hara mai me te noho. E te hiwa hia ana ki te noho, e te hi atu e noho te noho kei tu atu i te porofitara. Oia no e pai ana ki mātou. Hara mai te wā e hia ana, puta atu i te wā e hia ana hoki. E koia te atahuatanga o te hononga te whanaungatanga. E te hiwa e hoa, e te hi atu wā e hoa riri pēr angi. So, yes, i tono, engari kare rātou i whakai tēnei wātu, ko tā rātou hia kia whai te huarai o te kremi i te tuatai.
Ok, ka pai.
Ka rua.
Koina nui ho taku pātai.
Yep, ka rua, i hono atu te kremi ki te tehi tono a te taipūnara o Waitangi, mo te pūnaa, ara ko te kaupapa inquiry. So, there's a kaupapa e te mārama koutou, he kaupapa inquiry, mā reira, mā kona, pēa nge, ka kiti atu mena, kia whakatangata mai ai tērā tūru e wā te ana.
Ka pai, tēnā koe.
He mea anō? O te rā, ka tuku ki a koe tamahau mahau tō tātou hui e whakakapu?
Ok, e tēnā.
Kia ora.
Anaka tira, tēnā koutou katoa. Tēnā anō rā kia whitiki mai ai i te uatanga kai mua i te aroaro. Whitiki mai ai i te reo, whitiki mai i te matauranga Māori, whitiki mai ai i te manakoi. Mā tēnei nā tātou rā kia pai ere. Kia pai ere ki te rangi Mārie, ka pai ere ki te rongomau, ka pai ere ki rogotau tangata matua. Ko rogo take, ko rogo ka whakairi ia. Ka whakairi ia ki runga ki moi a tātou rā, he rama ka arataki ai tātou. Ao, pō, ki te ao. Kia tuitū te kupu, kia tuitū te mana, kia tuitū te oenua, kia tuitū te tiriti o Waitangi. Kia tuitū te ao Māori ake. Haumi e, hui e, tāiki.
Kia ora. Mihi nui kia koutou, mihi nui ki te ringa mahi. Tēnā koutou.